Here we are. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So this is actually our last event of the festival and last event of the year. The festival started back in October and it ran for 9 weeks. We have loads of amazing events. And yeah, we're closing today with Dean. So I'm just going to run through a few notes before we start. This event, as most of our online events, is free, but if you can afford to, please consider donating to the Authors Contingency Fund, which is a fund that helps authors in financial difficulty due to the health crisis. There'll be a link in the chat soon, and our suggested donation is a minimum of £5. And for the session will last about 45 minutes. There will be a 15 minutes Q&A at the end. You'll be able to ask questions in the chat. I see that many of you are already very active in the chat, so you can use that to ask questions, and I'm going to pick them up at the end. And then the last thing is, if you do experience any connection issues, there is a red reconnect button at the top of your screen. Please try using that. That usually fixes things, but if you have any issues, you can write in the chat, and my colleague Sophia, who is moderating this event, will try to help you. And yeah, we also have a virtual Blackwell store, actually, which includes all the books, well, not all the books, but books from the authors and the speakers that featured in our SOE at Home festival. And you can buy through the link that's going to be posted in the chat. And if you buy through that link, a percentage of what you spent is going to go towards our Authors Contingency Fund. Yeah, so we have Dean Atta with us today. Hello, Dean.
Hello, Nadia. Thank you for having me. And I didn't realize I was the closing event of the whole year.
You are.
I'm really, really chuffed about that. I want to be your headliner for 2020. So there we go.
Well, now you officially are the headliner for 2020.
I want to say I love your lipstick. It looks
Thank you.
stunning. I think some people might know I do drag sometimes, so I know a bit about makeup. And when I saw your lipstick when we came on, I was like, wow, perfect application and beautiful color for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also never do it, so I was terrified. But now, thank you. That's really nice.
And I was thinking, because obviously we look at ourselves so often now, being online so much, and knowing how to do makeup is a bit of a gift and a curse, because obviously if I wanted to, I could put some concealer on, I could do all sorts, but this is a fresh face today, nothing on, because I've kind of thought, these days, looking at yourself online so often in all these video meetings and events, you could hide that you look tired by putting some concealer under your eyes, but why hide if you're tired? Like, get some sleep, so I've kind of decided actually not to utilize makeup in this time, because I just want to see how I look, and I want other people to see how I actually look. So on a day I turn up to a video meeting and event looking tired, it's because I am. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
But actually, I don't feel tired today. I feel really excited. I've been looking forward to this one for some time. So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here. Well, just a brief introduction, although you all probably know Dean already, but Dean Atta was named as one of the most influential LGBT people in the UK by The Independent on Sunday. His latest book, The Black Flamingo, was awarded the 2020 Stonewall Book Award, and he's based in Glasgow, and he's the co-director of the Scottish Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Writers Network.
That's right, that's me.
That is you.
I want to ask, what tea do you have? I've got rooibos tea. Do you have a tea today?
I left my tea in the kitchen because I was too excited to come on. And actually, I was too worried about my lipstick at that point to grab it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it might smudge. Okay. Well, yeah, I use different types of tea in different times of the day. So like in the morning, I'll have like a breakfast tea with caffeine. But when it gets to kind of the afternoon, I stop the caffeine and go for rooibos, or like lemon and ginger tea with some honey, or sometimes just hot water.
Really?
Or fresh mint tea. So we've got a mint plant, and I've been putting fresh mint in there. But we actually finished that yesterday in a salad. We used some of the mint, and now our bush is bare. So we have no more mint. We're either going to have to wait for it to grow again or go to the shop and just buy some mint. But it's been nice having it growing and just kind of replenishing itself and using that. And that feels really nice. We're not like growers. We don't have loads of fruit and veg and stuff. But having like mint and basil and a few bits like that, it's nice to be able to just pluck it from a plant that you know is going to keep growing. Rather than buy it in a packet, especially if it comes in plastic, and just like be wasteful in that way. So yeah, those have been my like different types of tea: mint, lemon and ginger, rooibos, and then sometimes caffeine in the morning when I need it.
Well, absolutely. I try to avoid caffeine, but so I do have a peppermint tea going cold in the kitchen right now.
Maybe when I do my reading, you can run and get it, hey?
That would be nice. I want to hear you reading.
Okay.
So where are you having your tea today?
Today I'm in Glasgow, the south side of Glasgow in Scotland. And yeah, this is my home. I've lived here for over a year now with my partner, Tom, who's a doctor. And yeah, we've been living together, just that time. We used to live separately in London, but when he got a job up here, we decided we'd kind of take the plunge and move in together. And I moved my life and my career up here, and it's been really wonderful. You know, you can write from anywhere, but you do have, you know, a community of writers around you in the place you live quite often. And so I had to reestablish my community while staying connected to the kind of London community as well, because I've made incredible friends and have incredible support network in London as well, particularly in Malika's Poetry Kitchen, which I'm a part of. So I kind of, when I got here, had to seek out some community spaces and groups. So one for me was Category Is Bookshop, which is here in the south side of Glasgow, and it's an independent queer bookshop, and they do lots of events, or they were doing before the pandemic, lots of events. They even have yoga classes in there, a barber shop in there a couple of days a week.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so that was a place I kind of went to really early and got connected to lots of great people. And also the Scottish BAME Writers Network, which I joined as a member. And then, you know, sometime after become the co-director, because they advertised for a post. And I'd been so involved going to their regular workshops and attending some of their other events that I just thought, well, I think I have something to offer here, and I'd love to, you know, help steer the ship. There's a wonderful team, so I don't do it alone. There's a whole committee. But that's been incredible to be part of, because now I feel like I've gained a seat at the table in the kind of Scottish literary community and get involved with lots of other organizations in partnership and collaboration. So it's been really great to just get in at the deep end. And you know, the few days or weeks after I moved here, I was doing the Edinburgh Book Festival and celebrating the launch of the Black Flamingo in 2019. And so now, you know, it's a year and a bit old, and I've still, you know, got lots of interest from schools and different places around Scotland that want to kind of get me in and or do online events with me to talk about this book. So yeah, it's been really lovely. It's been strange because everything's online. You know, I don't feel like I in the community as much as I would have wanted to, but that's everyone feels that way. So I still feel connected, and I still kind of prioritize doing stuff that's Scottish based generally, just because I want to feel like I'm really here and not, you know, here in Scotland, not just here in my flat.
Yeah. It's wonderful how quickly you found your community there, moving to Scotland. Actually, it's really great. And you mentioned about the Black Flamingo, the online promotion. I know that the paperback came out actually just before lockdown, if I didn't get it wrong. Did you have to do a much online events for promotion for that?
Yeah, I got to do a few festivals, and schools were still inviting me in. And and I also have the US publication came out as well. And so I was doing events in America like late at night, and then doing events in the UK in the daytime. So it was quite intense for a period, but I have two, you know, incredible publicists at both of my publishers at Hachette and at HarperCollins. So they've been really brilliant at kind of organizing my diary for me. So we have like shared diaries. So they input the events and all the details I need, and I usually just have to turn up, kind of as you've seen, because communicating with me kind of either go through a publicist or an agent, and that's not me being difficult. That's actually just trying to preserve writing time, because there's so much admin in being an author. You have to usually organize a lot of your own events and visits and stuff like that. But when you have people willing to do it for you, like an agent or a publicist, I really relish that. So I take them up on that offer, and I'm like, yes, please handle everything.
Yeah, that's a non-fancy part of being an author that people forget about, actually.
It means I've been able to work on the second book, the second YA book, and give that real headspace, and so know that my emails aren't being ignored, someone else is handling them, and so I can kind of focus on writing, because that's the main part of the job. But obviously there's so many other parts of the job, and we could talk about some of those as well today.
Yeah, and you mentioned your new book. I know it's coming out in August 2021, so I imagine that's what you're working on right now?
Yes, that's the main thing I'm working on right now, and it's been a real pleasure to kind of just fully focus on it in this time. And it's set here in Scotland, in Glasgow in particular, and it's about a boy moving from London to Glasgow. So I'm kind of channeling some of my own experiences, but what happens with him is he leaves behind a boyfriend in London and then meets another boy here in Glasgow, and it's about how he kind of decides who he should be with. And and it's a love triangle, and it's a love story, but also about family, because he moves with his dad for his dad's job, and he's still communicating in a way with his dead mother. So it's about bereavement as well, and the book is inspired in a way by if you've read Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, where he addresses the whole book to his mother. I've got something of that going on, as well as, I've taken inspiration from a lot of books I've read recently, because I'm a bit of a sponge. So I read a book called Boy Queen by George Lester, and he's got a great kind of love triangle going on in there. And so that inspired me as well to think about love triangles. And so, it's really interesting what you read, and when you're writing can kind of, the theme can go in. There was another book called Like a Love Story, which has another kind of love triangle in. So I was just intrigued by that, because I think relationships are complicated. And I think teenagers are seeing there's a variety of relationships available in the kind of mainstream conversation about relationships, polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, and all these things are being discussed by young people. And for someone like me in their 30s, it's still a bit like, ooh, like that's interesting. It's kind of something that you think about, but then I like the comfort of monogamy. But I'm writing a character, and he's quite open to kind of the idea of maybe you can be in love with more than one person.
That sounds amazing. I'm really, really looking forward to it now. And actually, you've been teasing us on Twitter about a flurry of books coming from you. So it sounds like you have loads of ideas, loads of projects. How do you choose what to work on next?
My agent's really helpful. She helps me prioritize. We want to make sure that books have their own space. So, that there's 6 months at least around each book, and that I get to give them my all, whether that's in the writing time or the publicity time. And so, I don't want to overwhelm myself or readers. Not that you can get overwhelmed by the output of one author, but I just feel like I want to give each I was about to say album, because I was seeing Taylor Swift is releasing another album, and she's just released Folklore. So I'm just I don't want to knock them out like Taylor Swift.
Such a good comparison.
Take my time. For me, it's just about giving each book or each idea its own space and time. So I'm working on another poetry collection, and I just have to find the right window to bring that out between, I've got a book, a YA book coming out next August and another YA book coming out the following August. And I've got a children's picture book coming out at some time too. So there's various things happening, and I just want to make sure everything has appropriate space to be enjoyed and celebrated, by readers, but by me too. I want to really give each book the kind of time it deserves in the spotlight. Wow,
there is truly a lot going on for you. Also, you've also been recently appointed co-director of the Scottish BAME Network. Actually, that happened in August. So again, during this crazy year, can you tell us a bit about your work with them?
Yeah, I took that job just a year after I'd moved to Glasgow. So I thought a year was enough time to call myself Scottish. The job involves working with an incredible committee to come up with programs of workshops and masterclasses and events. Also work with various partners to put on kind of opportunities for writers and to kind of connect writers to the wider literary sector, and also to be advocates, particularly for BAME writers, and showcase BAME writers to the wider literary community across Scotland and the UK and the world. And so it's involved the current programs we've been doing. We just did a big conference which involved various publishers and literary organizations, and kind of dispelling some of the myths around publishing and getting into publishing and kind of identity politics. We talked about a lot. And those videos will be available online via our website in the new year, because we filmed everything to make sure we could kind of keep it and make it accessible for the future. We also have been doing a program of events called Metaphors for a Black Future, which has been focusing on Black writers. And also we've been collaborating with Scottish Pen to set up the Black Writers Group. And that's been really great because we've been able to link with writers not just in Scotland because of it all being online. We've also worked with Book Week Scotland on a whole week of activities. And then we worked with the Edinburgh International Book Festival recently in August to do events with them. And lots more coming up, dependent on funding, because we did our big funding application to Creative Scotland to continue our programme into the new year. And, things aren't looking certain because other organisations have not got their funding, because so many more organisations are needing funding because they're not getting revenue from ticket sales and other ways they used to get their money, because we're not able to put on in-person events and charge for things or kind of generate an income. So it's been probably much more competitive this time around to get funding. So writing a big funding bid was with the team, of course, but it was the first time I'd done something of that nature. I've applied for personal funding for me, for my books, which, we can talk about, because I wrote a letter to the Society of Authors and got some money for the Black Flamingo. But when it's as an individual, I think it's a lot less arduous than when you're writing for a big amount of money for an organization that wants to do a really ambitious program. So it's been great, and it's been a great learning experience to work on a committee in this way. I've worked in other literary organizations. I was guest artistic director for New Writing South, which is the writer development organization for the southeast of England, and that was a really interesting role as well. And I got to do lots of ambitious and innovative things with the team there. But that's different because it was a national portfolio organization with kind of semi-secured funding and, quite a wide remit. Whereas the BAME Writers Network is a bit more specific and, which for me, meant I was kind of really focused in what we're doing, and I kind of have a handle on maybe what BAME writers need in particular, rather than like what all writers need.
It's so true what you said, that it is really challenging now to get funding, actually, like even more than in the past. Like, so it's certainly not an easy thing in general, but this year, I mean, almost everybody needs it. And
yeah, but people have been very generous. I've seen lots of different initiatives doing crowdfunding. And even though, you know, many of us have less than we would ordinarily have, we're still being so generous and giving to anything that kind of pulls at our heartstrings or feels vital, you know, and isn't being recognized maybe by government support, you know. So I think I've been really impressed to see various initiatives, you know, including like Nights Of did a fundraiser, and various kind of LGBT organizations have done fundraisers, and people have been super generous to kind of give to anything that looks like, you know, is essential but not being recognized as essential, you know. And I think that's been really interesting, because this phrase of essential worker, essential business has been really contentious in how it gets used. And of course, the arts are so essential for our well-being, you know, but also, you know, for our livelihoods. These are people's careers. These aren't just people's dreams. This is actually people who have put their whole life into doing this. They've trained, they've sacrificed, you know, to be full-time artists. And to say suddenly it's not viable, it's that, you know, the circumstances are, as we know, unprecedented, but, you know, you're bailing out other types of organizations and businesses, you know, and they wouldn't be viable if they didn't get bailed out, you know. And so it's just about thinking about where are we placing value and what's got long-term value. And, you know, I'm sure we've heard lots of people saying, you know, what are we doing in lockdown? We're reading books, we're watching films, we're watching TV series. And so, you know, the arts are incredibly important, and we know that. But yeah, I'm glad to see people putting their money to those causes when people are asking for that support, because yeah, that gives me a lot of faith in people. You know, I know people want to get back out there and be in an audience when it's safe, but in the meantime, supporting things online is really vital.
I love how you just highlighted all the positives that came out of this. It really gives hope. And it's true, we've seen it with the Authors Contingency Fund. Like, the response we had was incredible and really, really heartwarming. So people are out there, they want to help, and that's beautiful. So let's get to actually the business of writing. So I would like to know about your writing routine. Do you have one? Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I write usually in 2-hour blocks throughout the day with kind of hour breaks in between. And so I'll get up in the morning, and usually I might, because I'm working for the BAME Writers Network, I'll probably do an hour on that just to kind of make sure I'm up to date on everything. And then I'll usually do my yoga or my meditation. I've been practicing Greek as well on Duolingo. I'll have my breakfast, and then I'll be like ready for the writing portion of the day. And then I'll do 2 hours, and then I'll take a break and maybe maybe go for a walk, maybe do something else physical, maybe do a little Joe Wicks video or something to get my body moving. And then, you know, get back to writing, then have lunch, and then get back to writing. And then probably there'll be some sort of online event that I'm at, you know, either performing, leading a workshop, or attending. So yeah, and the writing portion of those days, you know, it's kind of just either working on a kind of project that I'm actually, you know, writing. So kind of like just knocking out words and getting them down, or I'm looking at editors' notes and feedback and trying to resolve the kind of changes for the next draft, or kind of just doing something that's more just outside of my current project. So that might be just like writing a poem, like that's just kind of in the ether that needs to be got down on paper. So it can either be, you know, one of the projects I'm working on, the novel or a short story that I've been commissioned to write, or a poem I've been commissioned to write, writing it, editing it, or just kind of giving myself space to write something else. And so I do attend quite a few online workshops. So we have the Writers of colour group with the Scottish BAME Writers Network that's been meeting weekly. We have Malika's Poetry Kitchen that's been meeting regularly. And so I've been attending those as well. And that kind of generates new ideas. And those ideas don't have to be going anywhere. That's just to keep me fresh and keep me kind of coming up with new stuff when someone gives you a writing prompt. So I do try and attend as many kind of workshops as I can in any given week. So maybe 1 or 2 a week. More than that, and you do get a bit drained because, and you kind of got to focus on your project in hand. But that's it. And I do check in with my agent to see if anything's come in that I need to attend to. But usually she's on top of everything for me. So yeah, that's it. And you know, when I'm feeling like I want to procrastinate, I go on social media.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I like that you say that's it, as it's all simple, but it actually sounds
by the half hour, everything's in my diary. And if I don't do it like that, I'll take it out or change because I like to have a record of what I've done. You know, my diary is both like optimism, but also realism. So if it's changed and if I don't do the things I said I'm going to do, I take them out. Because I don't like to pretend to myself. And I once listened to this podcast called Serial, and this guy couldn't account for all of his day, and he got like convicted for a crime he didn't do. So I just like to have a record of everything I've done, because he couldn't say where he was on a certain day at a certain time. And so I want to be able to know where I was at all times.
That's very useful advice, actually.
If you remember the podcast Serial, let me know if it made you paranoid as well.
You're right. I'm a big fan of lists, but I never considered that they could actually be useful for that too. With the Poetry and Spoken Word group, we heard a lot of people having issues staying inspired during lockdown. So we even put together a resource for poets to, you know, find writing prompts and all of that, to just keep inspired and try to write, because some of them were not writing. Did you have any issues with that? Were you always inspired, or did it get worse? Did it get better? How was that for you?
Well, I think for me, for anyone who's watching from Scotland, you'll probably have heard of Hannah Lavery. And Hannah Lavery runs the Writers of Colour group, and she would bring fresh prompts to us every week, or still does. We're going on until the 18th of December. And so every week I've been going to that workshop, and she uses sometimes news headlines, sometimes kind of writing about the seasons or the changing of the seasons, writing about giving us kind of words and phrases to begin, often with free writing, but sometimes just creating lists of words and then borrowing words and phrases from each other. So we're kind of allowed to steal from each other. And if you don't want your words stolen, you just don't read them out loud. So a lot of borrowing from and being inspired by other writers. And that's something I've always been interested in doing. Like I've written quite a lot of poems that are like after another poet. So you read a poem by someone, you like the kind of theme or a line in it, and you use that. And then when you publish it, if you publish it, you just, say after Ocean Vuong or after Jack Underwood or whoever has inspired what you've written. So that's something that I've done a fair few times. And so, I kind of reading is obviously a great way to get inspiration. I know for a fact, I can't concentrate for a long time, both being dyslexic and also just, maybe it's just how I am, but like, that's why I like to read maybe individual poems or a book that, you can read a chapter and then put it down and not be lost when you return to it. So, it's rare that I'll sit down and read books cover to cover in one sitting. I think the only time I've really done that is when I've been on holiday in Cyprus and been sitting on the beach. And I remember one summer where I literally read every book by Zadie Smith because I was just like, I don't know, I think I'd left it quite a while. Like I hadn't gotten into Zadie Smith early on. And then I kind of discovered Northwest, and it just reminded me so much of Northwest London where I grew up, and I just kind of saw myself in that book, and I was like, let me read more. And I read The Autograph Man and On Beauty and White Tea just back to back, and I was just like, she's amazing, and she's become like my favorite author, and one day I will have dinner with her. That is kind of one of my dreams, to sit down and have dinner with Zadie Smith and just talk about, I don't know.
I really do hope that dream comes true. I'm sure it will, actually. And reading all of Zadie Smith in Cyprus, that's the dream. I mean, so
you could invite her via this, and you could actually get that.
Actually, Sophia, you're behind that screen. If you hear this, you have an idea.
Can I come and do the interview? I've read all her books.
We'll see if that can be arranged for you. And what are you reading right now?
At the moment, I've got a prop. I'm reading Poor by Caleb Femi.
Oh.
I bought, I don't know if he's my boyfriend's in the next room, but I bought this as a present for my boyfriend for Christmas. But I've decided to keep it for myself because it's so brilliant, and I've ordered him something else because it's got these incredible photographs in it, you know, as well as the poetry. It's got pictures, and these are all Caleb's own works, and that just really elevates everything. You know, it reminds me in a way of Claudia Rankine's Citizen, because she utilizes imagery alongside the text to do really powerful things. And Caleb, you know, is a photographer as well, and filmmaker, as well as a brilliant poet. And so it's only right that he chose his photography in this collection. I think they really complement each other so well. So yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment. And I think we've got it as a book club book for Malika's Kitchen. So I'm kind of ahead of time because we're not doing that till next year, but I couldn't resist. It was sitting there and it was going to be a gift to my partner. I thought I'll read it after him.
Oh, you couldn't be strong enough for that one. Weak writing routine, but then weak when it comes to reading things that you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a good flow to have, actually.
Yeah, I'm still giving it to her, but I also read my niece's one of my niece's gifts. I got her Julian at the Wedding by Jessica Love, because I really loved Julian as a Mermaid by Jessica Love as well. And I actually, when I bought that for her, I kept it and had to buy another copy to give to her.
It's something you do.
Julian at the Wedding, I'm actually just going to give that one over, and I'm not going to buy myself a copy because I have so many books. Like, it's really ridiculous. Like, we had to build extra shelves. Like, I get sent a lot of proofs and also buy a lot of kind of final copies of books as well. And so I'm just like inundated with books, and it's a great problem to have, but I know I'm never going to read all of them. And so at some point I should be like, okay, I received this book 2 years ago, or I bought this book 3 years ago. Maybe I'm never going to read it. Give it to someone. Like, you know, just do like a purge. But then they're so pretty. I like books as objects as well as, you know, what's within them, you know, because it's just, yeah, books are wonderful. Obviously, I'm a writer, I would say that.
I absolutely agree. But you're better than me. I really struggle giving them away.
But I mean, I love audiobooks as well. I'm not so keen on like e-reader kind of reading on a device, because I spend so much time on devices anyway, and so I like listening to books, and you know, I was really adamant, you know, I was really happy actually, because it was always going to happen that we did the audiobook for the Black Flamingo, and I got to do the voice, or the narration, I should say, because yeah, I really love when I get to enjoy a book as an audiobook, and sometimes I'll have the physical book and read along with it. And that was always my technique when I was kind of getting through my studies. I say getting through, but yeah, it was quite difficult, you know, being dyslexic and wanting to do A-level English and do English and philosophy at university. I had to rely on audiobooks quite a lot because I would get really tired and really lost when I sat down and read. And at university, you're expected to read at least a book a week. And it was just intense. And yeah, audiobooks got me through, as well as, what they called Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, all of that kind of abridged versions of the books. But, that's really not the point. I don't want to just get the gist of the book. I want to have had the whole experience. But I do get upset when people say like an audiobook isn't reading, because it clearly is. I've the whole book. I've experienced the whole book, and for me, that's reading a book.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's even, you even got double experience listening while reading. You got more than all of us. And you mentioned earlier that you got a grant for writing the Black Flamingo from the SOA. And of course, you are also an SOA member since last year. And what does the SOA mean to you?
It's incredible resource, incredible support for writers, when you need it, or being able to be a support for other writers as well by being on one of the committees. I know my friend Keith Jarrett's on the spoken word and poetry committee and loves it. I've attended some of the meetings, AGM meetings and stuff, and obviously received a grant. And the grant for me was really essential. My advance wasn't a lot for the Black Flamingo, and it wasn't enough to stop working. And my work is usually school workshops and performances, and to make enough money, I'll be in a school in the day and doing a gig at night, and where's the writing time? So I had to find a way to put that on pause, and getting the grant from the Society of Authors really topped up the advance I'd got from my publisher, and allowed me to actually stop doing other work for a while and actually focus on writing. And that was just really essential. And, this was my first novel. And so I understand why my publisher didn't give me a massive advance, but it just wasn't, a living wage. It wasn't enough to actually, take time out to write. And I applied to other places like the Arts Council and wasn't successful in that, because I don't know if it's more competitive. I don't know how many people apply to Society of Authors, but I know you kind of have to have a publishing contract and be working on a book. And so I guess that narrows the kind of the field of people you're competing against. And and I got what I asked for, and it made me think I should have asked for more. So I'd say anyone applying, just ask for as much as you really need, and don't underplay it, because you think you won't get the full amount available, because you might. And if anything, they can tell you, we're going to give you a bit less. But I'd say, ask for as much as you could do with, because writing time is so important, and anything you can do to protect that time and make it possible to write the best book that you've got in you, I think that's what you should do. For me, it was really, really great. I think I'm fortunate now because the Black Flamingo has been such a success. I got a better advance this time, and I don't need to do it again. But I think I would encourage anyone that needs to do so, because it definitely made sure I could be making sensible decisions around protecting my writing time and getting the book to be the best it could possibly be.
What else can I say? This is a quote that we should have everywhere.
There you go. You can use that in all your
something for the comms team of the SOA. And one more thing before we move on to the reading. I don't know if it's just me, but one thing I always do is reading the acknowledgement page of the books I read. I really enjoy it, and many of them are so heartwarming. And of course, I've read yours, The Black Flamingo, and it was so beautiful because it shows, you mentioned so many other poets that supported you and helped you, and it shows such a beautiful community of poets. It was such a lovely thing to read. So I want to ask you, what are your favorite things about the poetry community, and what are your hopes for its future?
The poetry community, I think, is quite a democratic one. I think all you need to do to be part of it is write poetry. There's kind of, you can enter at any stage of your kind of development. You know, you can be writing privately and then for many years and then kind of start publishing or turning up at open mic nights. You could have written your first poem and turn up at open mic night or send it off for publication. You know, you can self-publish, you can put on YouTube, you can do it your way. And I think that's really wonderful. I think that you can be very punk and be a poet, or you can be very establishment and be a poet. And there's no wrong way to do it, you know, and you'll find your audience and your readers, you know, respectively, you know, that suit you. So for me, I've loved kind of the cross section of society that you find within the poetry world. And I think I'm able to tolerate a wider range of people because I've met a wide range of people within poetry that I might not ordinarily meet if I wasn't engaged in that art form, you know, because I might not meet people that have been to private schools, or I might not meet people that have been to prison if I wasn't, you know, in the poetry community, where you meet both and they're on equal footing and they can be heard as long as they're not spewing hateful stuff, like they're given space. And I think that's really powerful, you know, to be at an open mic night and hear so many different experiences back to back. It's just, where else, you know? And so for me, that's what's really wonderful about it. Yeah, and so what was there a second part to the question? Was there a hopes part?
Yeah, just what are your hopes for its future, for the future of the poetry community?
I mean, you know, more of this, you know, a book called Poor that is just so authentic and like really captures, you know, lived experience. You know, a book like this that captures the Black queer experience. You know, I just think that is what we need, you know, people to be able to be their authentic selves, not have to pander to anyone, and still be given space in the mainstream. And I think we're seeing that more and more, not enough, but more and more. And so, yeah, I'd just say more of what we're currently seeing, but on a bigger scale. Yeah.
Oh, I think we're quite in the mood for hearing some poetry now. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll read a few bits of the Black Flamingo. I'll read the first bit I wrote that kind of inspired the rest of the book. And this is the sighting of the Black Flamingo. The Black Flamingo is about a boy called Michael growing up in London. He's Black, he's gay, and he's fabulous. And this is when he is on holiday in Cyprus, where his family live, and he's with his grandfather. Grandad goes back inside. He draws my attention to the news. The story, a Black Flamingo has landed on the island. An expert on screen explaining it is the opposite of an albino. Too much melanin, he says. Camera pans the salt lake full of pink, but the eye is drawn to that one black body in the flamboyance. The following evening, my beach towel and shorts dry on the balcony. Couples on mopeds ride past the house. Dogs walk humans before dinner. Grandad coughs violently, then lights another cigarette. Grandma calls us in to eat. The Black Flamingo is on the news again. I pick the dining chair facing the TV. Grandad asks, why does it matter if he's Black? Adding, the other flamingos don't care. And I'm certain what he's saying is I love you. And then I'll read another section where Michael is with his uncle, his Jamaican uncle, and they're driving to Michael's first days at university. Uncle drives me and my stuff to university. He tells me how proud he is, asks what I'm excited about and what I'm nervous about. I don't tell him I'm excited and nervous about meeting guys, having sex, maybe a relationship. I tell him I'm excited to have my freedom. We're 5 minutes from our destination, according to his sat-nav, and we hear sirens and see flashing lights. It's the police behind us. My uncle pulls over. I think at first to let them pass, but I soon realize they are pulling us over. They ask my uncle if this is his car, to see his license, where we are going. They tell him it's a very nice car, ask him what he does for a living. My usually polite uncle is abrupt with the police. Ask them what business they have stopping him. Was he speeding? Was there a problem with one of his lights? Did he fit the description of a suspect they're looking for? The police say we can be on our way and to have a nice day. They get back in their car and drive away. Are you okay? I ask. Uncle B begins. There's always something. No matter how hard you work, no matter how well you do, how successful or respectable, there's always something that will remind you you shouldn't get too comfortable. I always thought education and money was going to earn me respect, but a successful Black man is a threat, pulling me over for driving a nice car. This isn't what I wanted for your moving day, but this is what it's like to be Black in this country or anywhere in the world. They interrupt our joy, our history, our progress. They know they can't stop us unless they kill us, but they can't kill us all. So you're living your life and suddenly interrupted by white fear or suspicion. They fear sharing anything. Our success is a threat. I've never heard my uncle speak in these terms of them and us. I've never thought in these terms until today. And if I have time, maybe one more. Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Cool. So this one is called I Come From. And yeah, people might relate to constantly being asked, where are you from? I come from shepherd's pie and Sunday roast, jerk chicken and stuffed vine leaves. I come from traveling through my taste buds, but loving where I live. I come from a home that some would call broken. I come from DIY that never got done. I come from waiting by the phone for him to call. I come from waving the white flag to loneliness. I come from the rainbow flag and the Union Jack. I come from a British passport and an ever-ready suitcase. I come from jet fuel and fresh coconut water. I come from crossing oceans to find myself. I come from deep issues and shallow solutions. I come from a limited vocabulary but an unrestricted imagination. I come from a decent education and a marvelous mother. I come from being given permission to dream, but choosing to wake up instead. I come from wherever I lay my head. I come from unanswered questions and unread books, unnoticed effort and undelivered apologies and thanks. I come from who I trust and who I have left. I come from last year, and I don't notice how I've changed. I come from looking in the mirror and looking online to find myself. I come from stories, myths, legends, and folk tales. I come from lullabies and pop songs, hip hop and poetry. I come from griots, grandmothers and her storytellers. I come from published words and strangers' smiles. I come from my own pen, but I see people torn apart like paper, each story or a poem that never made it into a book.
Thank you so much for reading that.
You're welcome.
I want to call for a Black Flamingo audiobook now, read by you.
Oh, that exists. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
What? How have I missed that?
Is on Audible and anywhere else you can get audiobooks. So yeah, I narrate that.
I am downloading that as soon as we do this event. I'm glad I mentioned it now. I'm going to pick a couple of questions from the audience because we don't have much time left. But we're already late, but it's the last event of the year. People will forgive me. So Rana asks, what are your tips for revisiting poems that emerge in one go to a final draft, as in start writing and the poem just emerges with no prompt and research?
I'd say, well, make sure you've not said anything that needs some research, so obviously poems are usually from personal experience, but if you've kind of used any facts and figures, check that they are accurate. But I'd say leave them alone for a while, usually is the best thing to do. Put them away for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, and come back to them. You want your poems to stand the test of time. With most poetry publications, you submit something and they don't publish it for like 6 months to a year. So you want to make sure in 6 months to a year, you'd still be proud of it. So definitely make sure you can leave it a few weeks or a few months and come back to it and look at it again, unless it feels really urgent, because some poems respond to current affairs. You know, I wrote a poem called I'm Nobody's N-Word, and I put it out online the day after I'd written it. And I only got like one friend to proofread it for me, and then published it on my SoundCloud and then put it on YouTube. And so sometimes it does feel urgent and you want to put it out there, and that poem did go viral. So I'm not saying it's kind of a must to kind of hang on to them for a while, but you know, you'll know which poems need to go out immediately. And if they don't have like that kind of expiration date on them, then kind of let them sit and then come back to them after a few weeks or a few months. And I think you'll see them with fresh eyes, and you'll kind of start to know what needs to be done.
Thank you. And then we have Sue. She's asking, what prompted you to write for children and young adults?
A very good agent who kind of encouraged me, and a very supportive editor who kind of could see the potential in what I was writing. You know, I've done a lot of work with young people. I worked in a school for a year. I did a master's in writing and teaching at Goldsmiths, and then worked in 2 different schools in East London, one while studying and then one whilst after I kind of graduated with my MA. And so I've worked lots with young people, and I knew I wrote stuff that connected with young people. I knew how to relate to young people, encourage them to write their own stories. But yeah, and I've done projects like First Story, and they get young people's work published in anthologies. But also, you know, I had stories that I felt were, you know, relevant to young people, and I had that kind of gateway, that door open to publishing. And I thought it would be lovely to write for them in particular. And I think it's a time in life when you have so many questions and you're kind of looking at identity in lots of different ways. And I think, you know, a book like The Black Flamingo kind of looks at various intersections of identity. And I think young people of all genders and sexualities and ethnicities can see Michael's struggle and find something of their own in it as well. So I just knew that by being specific to what I knew, that lots of young people that are going through various things could see something of themselves in it, and that's proven to be true. But yeah, it took encouragement from my agent and editor that could see the potential of turning my poetry into storytelling, so therefore a novel in verse, which is what The Black Flamingo is, which is kind of just one poem after the other, but they tell a story.
And then Robin asks, how are you handling Zoom and screen fatigue? Because we've heard your routine and it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I had to go to the optician and check that I wasn't having problems with my eyes, because I was feeling like I was getting dry eyes. And so I've had my eyes checked and they're okay, but I have to use eye drops a couple of times a day because I am on screen more than usual. So yeah, where I can write, not like I can't really write my novel longhand, but like when I'm doing other writing, I do it in a notebook. I've got this little gorgeous notebook my friend Shabnam got for me, and so like writing on paper is really nice to get away from the screen, and then also looking away from the screen as much as possible, and actually saying no to meetings that don't need to happen online. You know, can we just have a phone call and you know, not actually have to look at each other's faces? Like, what is the need all the time? Like, and I've actually limited the number of events and workshops I'm doing. Like I said, priority's gone to stuff up here in Scotland, and otherwise I've kind of been very, very selective with what I've been doing actually online. So yeah, in the beginning I was really keen to do as much as possible, maybe March, April, May. But I got to that point where I was like, actually, if this is going on, I'm actually getting more exhausted than if I'd traveled somewhere and actually, you know, sat with people, because I feel energized by being in a room with people. I don't always feel energized by being on Zoom or whatever it is.
Actually, Catherine asked you, what do you write with? Are you stationary lover or are you straight into laptop? But I think you've answered that already, showing us that beautiful notebook. So I'm going to pick one last question because then we have to close. Right, so what are your tips for getting your first book of poetry published if you're new to writing?
I'd say sending out to journals and magazines and competitions to get lots of individual poems placed in different places. Go for ones that you've actually read and you know kind of the style and you like the magazine and you want to see your work there. You'd be excited for them to publish it. And, you know, I've got many friends that have kind of built up an online following, you know, Yersa Daily Ward, Nikita Gill and others. So I'd say think about, you know, what other platforms could work for you. It could be Instagram, it could be YouTube, thinking about where you want to show your work, you know, so you can go through, you know, gatekeepers like magazines and journal editors, or you can go straight to your audience and start building that up directly. And, you know, either way, if it goes well, there'll be a book deal. Like if you get enough followers online, then the publishers will take note of that. If the writing is good, you know, and it will be if the followers are coming to you. And if you get enough poems placed in individual magazines and win some competition, then publishers, agents will take notice of that as well. So just start getting individual poems out there. Or if you've got a whole collection and you just feel like it urgently needs to be in the world, there are pamphlet competitions, there are book competitions that individual publishers run. Look at Platypus Press and many others to do that, or self-publish. You know, self-publishing is publishing, and you know, if you feel like your book needs to be in the world urgently, there are many ways to self-publish. Even if you do a zine, a small print run, and you just, you know, find an online way of selling it, 100 copies, 50 copies, whatever. Just get it out there, you know, get it out there.
All right, I'm afraid that has to be the last question. I mean, I would have many more questions for you, but I know that Dean is on Twitter. So actually, if you do want to continue this conversation on Twitter, you can tweet to him and you can use the hashtag SOE at home to continue this conversation. It'd be beautiful to see you actually all talking on Twitter. It's always nice to see the community very active and engaged. Yeah. And so thank you so much, Dean. It has been a wonderful closing of the year and of the festival. Thank you, Sophia, who's been moderating this event for us. Thank you, all of you, for being here, of course, and for being asking questions and being so engaged in this conversation.
We should do this again, right? But with Zadie Smith.
With Zadie Smith. Of course, come back next year for the event with Dean Atta and Zadie Smith, because he will not stop until it happens. I know that. And actually, neither will I. And as I mentioned, this is the last event of the year. But do come back for more in 2021. We will have a new program. It's not up yet, but do keep an eye on our events page on the website. The link will be in the chat. We have recordings of all our festival events on our Vimeo channel. There will be a link in the chat in a moment as well. So if you've missed them, you can rewatch them. If you just love them so much or you want to watch them again, do that, please. We had many amazing afternoon teas. We opened with Neil Gaiman in October. We had Daljit Nagra. We had Roger Robinson. We had
that was the best one. Lem Sisay's one was
Oh, that was so good. So much fun. We have Amro Kadi, Antonia Fraser. Do go on Vimeo and watch them all, please, because they were all so good. And yeah, so a final thanks to all of my colleagues who worked hard to put this festival together. So we do hope that this festival made your 2020 a little brighter. Thank you, Dean, again, and see you all in 2021. Bye.
Bye.